How have your entrepreneurial pursuits taught you to be a better investor?
So I've been involved in a number of ways with venture capital, raising money. I've raised money now for two companies myself, and I've helped a third company raise money as well. I'm a fund advisor for Freestyle Capital, and I've invested my own money into three companies now. And the things that I've learned are that there are billions of dollars that are being deployed in what at times appears to be a very chaotic manner. VCs work off of portfolio theory. They invest in 100 companies, and they expect 95 of them to fail for the most part. And what that lesson taught me as an entrepreneur is if you're one of those 95, guess what? You are competing with 95 other people for probably 20% of their time because they're spending the other 80% of their time on the 5 winners. So that's a harsh reality to learn, but it's good to know. And I think that there are times when getting the attention of your VC and your investors can actually be a bad thing. Where, not that they're bad people or whatever, but it's nice to sometimes work without having the pressure. So I know founders that will withhold good information for just a little while longer so that they can have a little bit more breathing room. And then they're like, ta-da, we're one of the 5. And then the VCs are like, hurt over and they're like, oh, and they bear hug them, and they're like, oh God. It's like when your mom gives you the hug, you're like, Mom, stop, So that's been interesting to learn about. The way that what's been really fascinating to me is like someone like me that dressed like me, looks like me, says the F word as much as I do, can walk into a guy's office who manages billions of dollars, and then I'll show him. Well, with my last company, I didn't even have a PowerPoint presentation. I didn't even have a presentation. I had a financial model in Google Docs, a product document, and a prototype. And they're just like, oh yeah, let me pull out the checkbook and just write you a giant check with lots of commas in it. And you're like, really? It seems, growing up in a blue-collar family in the Midwest, it seems like you're cheating somehow, like you're stealing money or whatever. So that's been really interesting. A lot of people on the outside view it as like, that the firms don't really talk with each other and that they're always competing, and they do compete for deals, but it's not really like that at all. They talk a lot to each other. They will actually I won't say fully collude, but there are a lot of times that the VCs are back channeling with each other a lot more than entrepreneurs really realize. And then you just learn the basic mechanics. Like I know now that angel investors, depending on the angel investor, they want between 0.5 point and 1.5%. They want enough that will take their $20,000 to $100,000 investment and turn it into $1 million, right? And that will do if you're the first 1.5 points in, that can happen if it's one of those 5 companies. I now know that seed stage, they generally want between 12.5% and 17% of the company. I know that the Series A wants 20%. Series B, things start going back down because hopefully by then you're making money and whatnot. You're then looking at more like anywhere between 10 and 20%, and the C is definitely kind of in the 10% range. So the basic mechanics of understanding how that game is played has been invaluable to me. I've been able to negotiate better terms for myself. I've been able to, I advise a number of companies. I've been able to read term sheets over and tell them like, hey, maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe we should do this, and getting clear insight into how the VCs interact with each other and who likes who and who doesn't like who and how they work together has made me a much stronger, I won't say opponent, but like when I go into the ring with those guys, like I know who's going to say what to who and how that's going to all work out. And knowing the players in the game makes you a better player. I almost feel like, one of the best defensive basketball players of all time, Dennis Rodman. That man watched hundreds of thousands of hours of video. And it was also that he could know his players, his opponents inside and out. And being an advisor, being a fund advisor, investing in money, investing my money, etc. That's my way in to understanding the game and my opponents and who I'm going to be going up against, as far as the next deal goes on down the line, and getting insight into their mentality. I read an interview once about Dennis Rodman, and they were talking about how much of a fanatic he was about watching tapes. And he got so good at it that he could literally say, by the time the guy flicked his wrist, so you're talking about the ball is maybe 1/3 of the way to the rim, he'll be like, that's going to bounce off the back of the rim off the left side. That's going to bounce off the front of the rim straight down the lane. Like, that's how good he was. Like, so it's taken that, doing that has taken me from being a blue-collar kid that grew up in a cornfield to somebody who can negotiate contracts with some of the best MBAs that our country has. And it's really fun.